Hello everyone, it's DJW here again in a different place. I don't think I've ever done a recording from here before. It's a lovely day. You see the farmers have been busy harvesting this crop. I think it was wheat. I think we're just at the point of the wheat harvest. All combine harvesters and things around. So I had some brief thoughts that I wanted to share. I've mentioned before about siloing of ideas and perspectives, like how there's, a lot of people, they sort of have an identity, cling to that identity, and they can't shift. And I think there's a tendency to kind of see that as sort of inherently negative, and I mean, in a way it is. I think if you're just locked into one perspective and you can't look outside of it and accept the possibility that you might be wrong, it's not a very good thing. But I wanted to kind of say that I don't think it's necessarily that everyone is becoming negative. Whilst I think a lot of people are, I actually think there's a bit of a polarity going on. Whilst I think a lot of people are falling, unfortunately, for very kind of negative identity politics and quite cruel and sort of selfish and nasty sort of ideas, and othering people, whatever it is, this sort of thing going on. I think it's important to remember that it does work the other way. For everyone kind of turning to darkness, if you want to call it that, there's always going to be someone who's going to go to the side of light. Like, there's always going to be someone who thinks, hey, you know what, actually, loving other people and caring about other people actually is a good thing. And even if you just kind of think, you know what, even if I can't help people, I'm not going to do anything to make their lot any worse or any harder. And there are people doing that, perhaps few and far between. The dark is often easier, gives easy answers, doesn't need nuance or a lot of thinking. You can just kind of, you join the team and away you go, and it's all kind of there for you. And it's it's appealing, do what we say and be rich and famous and successful and, get lots of women and all this. And it's designed to be slick, But there are people doing the harder work. There are people who are consciously trying to do the right thing, trying to avoid cruelty and so on. And often, I mean, that can actually be a bit of a delicate balance as well, because you often, you might end up sort of losing yourself. You're so selfless that you lose yourself. And it's important not to do that. It's important, to maintain your own boundaries and your own self-respect, and to keep yourself safe in that process. Because the dark side, it's a bit Star Wars, isn't it? But, that will kind of say, oh, don't worry about other people. They're not people anyway. They're NPCs. I mean, they do it, okay, I mean, they do kind of exist, but you know, you kind of think, therefore it doesn't matter. Like, you can just do what you want, say what you want, be selfish, and it's easy. And they say, oh, don't worry about it, don't have a conscience, don't listen to that little voice saying, who cares? Sorry, no, the little voice that says that you should care. It puts you into you end up thinking, who cares, you do what you want. And it is common, and it is prevalent, and it's tempting to just go with the flow. They talk about how, like, low-level criminality is sort of just out of control, and I think that's part of it. I think it's a selfishness. But at the same time, there is this other stream of people, not many, but there are people who are trying to do good. Now, there's also, what you've got to be careful of, is there's a lot of people who are, the image is that they're doing good. They look like they're doing good, they look like they're spiritual, they sound like they're enlightened, they say things that often resonate, but again, when you take a step back, you think, hang on a minute, what? And often it is sort of through a lot of spiritual type channels that you'll often find, for example, they're great, they're talking about, the goddess and this kind of thing, which is fine, but what about the God? It ends up one-sided, and it ends up, all you do is you switch one dominant system for another. It's just different people running the system rather than changing the system and recognizing, it's a duality of both. But the ones who are genuinely doing good, they are out there. They are there. And it's important to remember that. But it is funny that, even on a personal level, like, in many respects, I'm just an ordinary guy. I have a job and a mortgage and a car, bills, and it's a real struggle for me increasingly as I get older to see value in that. I actually had last weekend, I was at an event, nothing doesn't particularly matter what, but they had, bizarrely and unexpectedly, they had a yoga class there. And I do go to yoga locally 2 or 3 times a month, which I find very good, helps me relax. I'm going to go on Sunday. They've got like a 2-hour a relaxation thing, which is always nice. And sometimes I go in the week, and there's like classes for mobility and classes for balance. It's very good. But anyway, they had it at this event, and I saw it in the afternoon. I was walking past, I thought, oh, they're doing yoga. And then I looked on the sort of program, and there was one on the Sunday morning. So I went to that. There was me, the instructor, and another guy who was a friend. I don't think he was really to do with the event either. The instructor wasn't. But it was a very, very good class. She was a very good teacher. It was nice to kind of do it with somebody new. It was a good experience. What was I going to say? Yeah, and then there was another one in the evening or late afternoon, which ended up being just me and the instructor. I'm going to go back from there. So when I did that, ended up, as I said, being a one-on-one, which was very good. And I said, I carry a lot of stress, like in my shoulders, and sort of in my back, and someone pointed out some, points on my body, and it was very good, very sort of targeted, and it was really enjoyable, and I like it. I think one of the things I actually really like about it, and why I do recommend yoga, is it quietens the mind down, because there's a meditative aspect. So you're focusing on breathing, and the mind's not going crazy. I mean, I've mentioned in previous videos, I met someone many years ago, also a few years ago, who, well, I mean, I thought she was kind of the one, but she was I believe she still is, a yoga teacher, and she said to me, yoga is like magic. And I actually realised recently that I did go to a class before I met her. I went once. It, funnily enough, was a date with another woman, and we went to a yoga thing in, I think it was like Gloucester or something. But it was like music and yoga, but it was fun. It was good. And I think it certainly can be. It can do very good, and it's something I'd certainly like to do more of, and incorporate more into my daily life. Yeah, I think that would be very good. I mean, sometimes like I was thinking how great it would be to be able to just quit my job and go be like a forest therapy practitioner and a yoga teacher, and just sort of deal with well-being and helping people, which is kind of what I want to do. I mean, I do get to, in a way, in what I'm doing, but it's not the same. It's not as fulfilling. And definitely, I'm very, very into sort of spiritual practices, and I think meditation would be good. I don't know how I can really incorporate that. I tend not to be able to do it myself, but I suppose to tie into what I was saying before, I thought it was, this teacher, I really sort of felt like, it was very genuine and helpful and instructive and wanting to help people. And I mean, the class I go to regularly, again, the teacher there, it's slightly different perspectives, slightly different techniques, but I think the underlying philosophy is the same. It's about helping people. It's about trying to bring relaxation and peace, because most people's lives are, so fast paced. There's so much going on. I mean, I often find I just cannot sort of spin all the plates at once, There's just so much going on, particularly at work. I just feel overloaded. And I think how marvellous to, even if I can just go and spend a couple of hours sitting in the woods. I actually went, I can't remember when it was, a couple of weeks ago, and I just went to the woods with a book, sat in the woods for a couple of hours, just reading my book, sat propped up against a tree, and it's just like everything slows down, and you're just in that natural space, and it's marvellous. I love it. But it's, as I say, that there are other people, I think, doing this kind of thing, but few and far between, and it's not very many. But if you're out there, say hi. Let's do something. Let's go for a hike. I don't know, how do people meet? I mean, I see these festivals and stuff, I keep seeing adverts for recreations of 90s raves, which I never went to. I'm somewhat too introverted, or certainly was. But it's I'd like to go, but then I'm thinking, crikey, go to an event like that and you don't know anyone. I mean, I have done that before, but it is hard. And as I've got older, it's really, really hard to to connect with people, you know. But it would be fun, you know, go camp out somewhere and just chill out and listen to music and, you know, be by a river or something. There is something very soothing about water, I find, you know, whether that's by a lake or a river. So I suppose in a way what I'm saying is, even though it's very easy to see everything as bleak and hopeless and forlorn, there are people trying to do the right thing. There are people trying to be positive and trying to bring about something better. And I am pleased I've got friends who are in that kind of mindset and, you know, working in that kind of arena. I just wish there was more of it. I just wish it was easier to connect with people. So yeah, that was all really, just some thoughts as I'm enjoying these fields. But wherever you are, whoever's listening, I hope you're well, and I wish you health and prosperity and joy and peace and all the love that the universe has to offer, or dare I say that God has to offer. And I hope wherever you are, the weather's nice. Here, this is about perfect. It's sort of high 20s, clear. There's a gentle breeze, and it's very, very nice. You know, because it's not too hot. We had 30 odd, I think. Last week was it 36 degrees? I think, you know, like it's unbearable. So I'll leave it at that. See you later.